If I asked 10, even 100 hockey players which of these two sticks is better, I would say 95% are going to choose the Adidas one. And they'll choose it because they think it's got better carbon in it, which it does. But this stick might be perfect for you at the minute. Today we're going to talk about what carbon means in hockey sticks and the myths around them. Carbon is probably the most misunderstood number in hockey, and that's due to the fact that most players think that more carbon means more power, more performance, and an all-round better stick. In reality, it's a bit more complicated than this. In this video, we're going to explain what carbon actually means and how it could be affecting your hockey game. So what does carbon actually do in hockey sticks? Well, high carbon hockey sticks are incredibly stiff. And that's great because it gives you more power, extra stiffness, and that better energy return when you're playing. The downside to all that carbon is that it's less cushion, you lose that touch and feel, and frankly, it's really difficult to control the ball. So it's all about finding the right balance of carbon to feel when you're using the stick. So if you buy a Ferrari, you've just passed your test, and you get this nice fancy sports car, it's obviously less forgiving, but you can still only do 45 miles an hour in it, so you've wasted all this potential. It's exactly like a hockey stick. We want to make sure you get the carbon percentage that suits your style of play. We've tried to make things really simple here at Total Hockey. We've tried to split all our sticks into perfect carbon bands to suit all levels of player. So for example, this stick here falls into the 0 to 20% carbon sticks. And these are perfect for beginners. If it's your first time buying a senior stick or even a junior stick, these are ideal. They're perfect, they're lovely and soft, there's loads of fiberglass in it compared to the carbon to give you that touch and feel that you need to develop your hockey skills. We then move up to the 20 to 40% carbon, and these sticks are for those intermediate players that are starting to get more into hockey. You could be playing for club and school, or you could be a bit more of a senior player coming back to hockey. These are great. More carbon, stiffer stick, so you can hit the ball a bit harder, but not stiff enough to lose all that ball control that you desperately need. We then move up to the 40 to 60% carbon sticks. Now these are the sticks that start veering into more carbon to fiberglass, which means that they are going to feel stiffer to players. These are great if 15, 16-year-old players that are needing that bit more power to keep the level of play going at senior hockey. They're perfect for still that incredible power that when you get with that increase of carbon, but the fiberglass in it keeps it soft for the skills that you're still developing but starting to master. We now move to the 60 to 80% carbon sticks, and these are probably for club players. Most players, personally, and how we think should be playing with these sticks. These are great. Plenty of carbon to keep the ball hard when you're hitting it, but there is still that extra bit of fiberglass to keep it soft when receiving the ball, doing your skills in the pitch, keeping it manageable for everyday hockey players. These are great for players that want the power, but without the loss of feel. And finally, we go to that 80 to 100% carbon range. These are the sticks that are the most stiff. These are going to give you plenty of power output with loads of energy reduction. The downside to them is, like we said before, is there's less touch and feel and cushioning in these. These are probably designed for your elite hockey players and internationals because they're using the stick every day and can get that control when they need it. We're not discouraging you from buying these, but it might not be the right stick for you with the amount of stiffness in these hockey sticks. So like everything, hockey has plenty of myths, and there's loads of myths surrounding carbon on hockey sticks. The first one being the biggest is the more carbon in the stick, the better the stick is. As we explained in this video, this is not necessarily the case. The best carbon point for you is how you play hockey, and we'll be able to find that for you. The next myth that we get all the time from people in our stores is the more carbon in the hockey stick, the lighter it obviously is going to be, which again is not necessarily the case. Yes, some carbon sticks may be lighter than some of the junior ones, but this is purely because of the design of the stick. The more carbon in the stick, the more elite the stick becomes, which naturally means that the stick is going to feel a bit lighter to some players compared to others. Another one is that more carbon in the stick means that the hockey stick is going to be more accurate and better performance. Again, not necessarily the case. The accuracy is going to come from the technique that you learn beforehand. And the best way to learn all that technique is probably with a softer stick. So getting a stick that has less carbon will help with that technique. So when you do get a higher carbon stick in the future, it's going to be right for you and you don't lose that most important touch and feel and technique of the stick. The biggest one being more carbon means I'm going to hit the ball harder. Again, not necessarily the case. More carbon in the stick is stiffer, but if you physically can't generate the power yourself, you've just bought a stick with all this power and you won't be able to get it out. I've used this analogy I don't know how many times, is you buy yourself a Ferrari after buying your driving test, but you can only do 45 miles an hour in it. So the stick that you've bought has all this power, but you're only going to get this much out of it. So it's better to get the full 100% out of a 30% stick rather than 30% out of a 100% stick. The best myth that we get all the time for carbon is, if I spend 350 quid on a hockey stick, will that make me a better player? If only that was the case. Everyone would be buying top end sticks and would all be international players. It's all about how you use the stick. So if that means getting a slightly cheaper stick, which is better for you, and having a better experience with that stick, then honestly, that's better for you. So after all that, how do you choose the right carbon level? So instead of coming in and asking, what carbon percentage should I buy? You need to ask yourself a few more questions. What level of hockey are you playing? How often are you playing? Obviously your budget, and a few other bits and pieces as well to determine what stick is right for you. Now, how we try and do it is, if someone comes in with their old stick and they say it's a 20% stick, we might show you a 30 or 40% as your next stick up. Bumping up in 10-20% carbon ranges is far more manageable than jumping from 20 to 95. That would be very silly. But equally, someone that only plays hockey once a week for school might need to just stick with that 20% stick because that's right for them. Equally, on the other hand, if you're playing for club, school, provincial, international, and your week's full of hockey, then maybe moving up a few more might be right for you. The more hockey you play, the easier it is to get used to the stick that you've bought. So someone that's going to play every day of the week is going to get used to a slightly stiffer stick far quicker than someone who's only playing once or twice a week. So some questions we get asked all the time in store, online, or over the phone is, this is my first hockey stick. What stick or what carbon should I use? If it's your first one, that 0 to 20% carbon range is exactly what you're looking for. Still power to hit the ball nice and hard, but loads of touch and feel. The next one we get all the time is, my son is 13, 14, and he's come home asking for a 90% carbon stick. This is probably the case that one of his friends has got one and now he wants one. If he's that sort of age, we'd be looking probably the 40% range, purely because that's how much he's going to get out physically of the stick while maintaining better touch and feel. No point buying a top end stick when you're not going to get the full performance out of it. If you're a club player, and a lot of times people are, I would say sticking in around that 60 to 80% carbon, loads of power, but still plenty of touch and feel for maintaining those skills that you need for hockey. Carbon is not the end all and be all of hockey sticks. It's something we have all the time in our stores and over the phone. People think that carbon's the best part of a hockey stick. It's not. You're actually the best part. So you want to make sure that you can play well with the stick that is the carbon percentage suited to you. So what have we learnt about carbon? It's not always the end all and be all of hockey sticks. The more carbon in the stick, it only stiffens the stick up. It does nothing else magical to the stick. You want to buy a hockey stick that has the carbon percentage to suit your game. And if that means sitting in the same place that you were or only moving up 10%, that's going to be better for your game than spending too much money and getting the wrong stick. It's now your turn. Tell me in the comments below, what stick are you currently using now? And also, what stick would you like to get if you were to buy a new stick tomorrow? Let us know. It's really interesting to see how people are doing it. But next week, we're putting hockey shoes under the spotlight. We'll be testing everything to do with hockey shoes. So we'll see you next week in Total Hockey Lab.